Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the greatest rock and roll stories in the universe, all from the fans' perspective. It's Rock Stories with the Brumster. Now, here's the host of the show, my rockin' daddy, the Brumster.
Welcome, Rock Stories with the Brumster, real rock stories from the fans' perspective. And lately, we've had some awesome rock and roll and music fans on the program. All friends of the Brumster also as well. Past episode, check it out. My Aunt Sue, the ultimate Beatle fan. Well, I'm sure there's several in this group that might be on par, but we've been connected with some of her awesome friends in the music world and fans on the run, the ultimate Paul McCartney fan group. They go see all the Paul shows around the world, but they're not just Paul fans. They're music fans, they're rock and roll fans, and they're here to pull back the curtain for you, if you will, but see behind the scenes, the best memories, the greatest memories, concert stories, meeting the artist, also just views about what they think about music. You know, we're going to go everywhere with our guests here on Rock Stories with the Brumster. By the way, if you'd like to check out Rock Stories with the Brumster, tune in 11 a.m. every Sunday Pacific Standard Time at rockradio559.com, but also as well at the Brumster Spotify channel. And don't forget, get a free Today in Rock History every single day. Tune in, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. Today in Rock History with the Brumster YouTube channel. If you go there and you type in Today in Rock History, you're just going to get a random, probably made 2 years ago, Today in Rock History video. But if you come to Today in Rock History with the Brumster YouTube channel, you'll get applicable to that date. That's right. So today you go there and you'll see today's April 21st as we're releasing this Rock Stories with the Brumster. But you'll go to Today in Rock History with the Brumster and get today's applicable to today's date. Today in Rock History with the Brumster YouTube channel. Check it out. Thanks so much for being here. Pull back the curtain time. And also as well, I'd like to say that music is a time machine and it transports us back in time. And so we're so thankful that you can bring us along for your journey. James Liverani is our special guest, awesome rock fan, music fan on the run, as well as a friend of Aunt Sue and now a friend of the Brumster and a friend of you here in the audience. James, welcome to the program.
Hey, Brumster, thanks for having me.
Oh, right on, man. My Aunt Sue, she was like, I know another dude that should be on your show, and he is rocking. I was like, okay, let's do it. Thanks for being here, James.
Great. I appreciate you reaching out to have me on.
So, James, let's get started. Rock us down memory lane. Favorite concerts, favorite artist. Obviously, you're a fan on the run, so Paul McCartney. But favorite artist, favorite concert memories. What got you into rock and roll, man? Tell us about it.
Well, my dad definitely got me into the Beatles. Born into it. He's a massive Beatle fan, of course, Paul fan. We've never missed a show together, really. And he's seen every American tour since '76 with Wings. And I was born in '86, so my first tour was the '89-90 tour. So 1990 was my first show at Giant Stadium. And and then I, became a musician through school. I'm now a music teacher and musician myself, playing with a few bands, and it's what I do. It's what I love. Yeah,
you love the tunage, you love the music, and it really does doesn't it take us back in time? It's like a time machine, right, James?
Like I tell my students, it's everybody's same language. Everybody talks the same language, and it speaks to everybody, and it moves everybody with a few notes.
Right. That's why you can go to like Japan or something like that and have a totally, English-speaking band get up there and sing in all English, and you've got these people, name a country, right? It
reaches everybody.
Reaches
everyone.
Wow. So
it's fun. It's so funny. As you were doing your intro, it reminded me. Today is actually another McCartney memory. 20 years ago, he was playing at the Coliseum over here on Long Island, in New York, and we had tickets, obviously, But we like to go to the limo entrance first. A lot of the fans on the run, you'll find where the limo comes in. And this was 2002, the Back in the U.S. tour after years of touring, of not touring, I should say. And it was a little rainy outside, and we saw a helicopter land in a field nearby. There's a college next door to Nassau Coliseum. And sure enough, that was Paul, and he drove the limo right across, and he stopped and talked to us for a few minutes, and actually got to shake his hand, and it was very cool. So it's funny, it's 20 years ago today, actually.
Wow. Talk about today in rock history being applicable to today, right?
Absolutely.
Man, one of our past guests, another fan on the run, a friend of Aunt Sue and a friend of the Brumster, Morley Bartnoff was on, and he just said, yeah, it's harmonic. It's serendipitous. It's just the way it all is supposed to be, and here it is to the date. This memory is the day that we're recording this. Wow. That back in 2002. Perfect. Wow. That's amazing.
Perfect.
Yeah. What timing. Well, continuing on with the adventure, rock stories with the Brumster, James Liverani, rock fan with us here on the program today. We tell rock stories from the fan's perspective, right? James, you hear this all the time or see it all the time. You've got Guy Fieri style almost, got driving around the car, going and visiting everyone, the Red Rocker, Sammy Hagar. He's got that cool show on AXS. And I mean, we love watching, the actual stars. It's great. But the fan's perspective, I was thinking it really doesn't exist, and it should. That's where the best stories are. And so that's Absolutely. Why we created the show. What do you think about that? Are we barking up the right tree?
I think you nailed it, my friend.
Yeah, I think so too.
Nailed it.
So speaking of fans' perspective and cool rock stories and adventures, is it all just Paul, Beatles, or what else do you like and love?
Well, being a music teacher, I appreciate all kinds of music. I teach orchestra, string orchestra, so love classical stuff. I teach jazz band, so love jazz. But I'm a big John Mayer fan. Love his guitar playing. Love his songwriting. Not a big country fan, but I love Chris Stapleton. All classic rock, Floyd, Stones, ELO, Clapton, all of that stuff. I mean, that's pretty much from my dad, I'm sure. And my mom hears this; she's not gonna like it. She's a big country fan, but so I appreciate it all. But those are my go-tos: classic rock, Mayer, obviously Beatles,
yes,
Stapleton, that kind of stuff.
Right. And what grade do you teach? What school?
I teach at a private school here on Long Island, so I have actually pre-K all the way through 12th grade. We have all the kids. So I have general music for the little ones, but then orchestra starts in 5th grade. So I have strings 5th grade through 12th, and then the rest are general music, little chorus, and then high school jazz band as well.
Oh, that is so cool. We see it all the time where you see orchestras playing cool rock songs. Do you ever throw some Beatles in there and play around, or is it just strictly the classics?
No, I do. I threw in Eleanor Rigby. I think we did something. Jazz band has a version of Blackbird we've done. I do it as much as I can get away with.
That is so cool. Yeah. I would love to be a kid at your school, man. School of Rock.
Actually, one of my dreams, actually, years ago, obviously, when Paul did, I think it was Standing Stone. There's a song that he did, or a piece in that song, in that classical that he did. Is called Celebration, and Paul likes to do that song at sound checks on the piano with the band. And I actually, with a dear friend of mine who we actually lost last year, Mike Mattia, we rearranged it to work for my high school orchestra with the band and the chorus. And we did it as a finale at one of our concerts, and it was just brilliant. Not only to play it, but to see my students jumping right in and me telling them, this is something that I love, and I want to share this with you. And they played it amazing. I actually have a video of it that's I cherish.
Oh, is it posted by chance?
I think I have it on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. Where can our listeners for Rock Stories with the Brumster go check it out at?
I think it's on my on my YouTube page. I don't post much. I have a couple concert videos. Just James Liverani on my YouTube.
Very cool. Go check that out, folks. Make those kids stars. That's awesome. They are stars, man. That's phenomenal.
They are to me. I don't have my own kids, so I tell them they're my own.
That's awesome. And you get to share that with them instead of just, X's and O's, right? There's flavor to it, to education.
There's way more than just the dots on the page. They learn a lot more just about life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Rock Stories with the Brumster, again, James Liverani with us, our special guest today. We pull back the curtain and give you real rock stories. So behind the scenes, some of these other adventures, what other concerts have you gone to, and artists have you had a chance to meet any or rock out to any, or what's your favorite concert memories?
Well, they're always going to be Paul. I mean, those are always the best. Not only just the shows, but obviously Aunt Sue and people like that. Meeting them, Fans on the Run. They're some of your best friends you'll meet over the years. The creator of it, Rick Glover. I met him 1993 in Las Vegas when I was like 6 years old. He was starting it there and had his big sign, and he actually just posted something recently because it was the anniversary. I think the 14th was the anniversary of that show. So after all these years, and he's still doing it, and me and Dad are still out there, and all these people, and Bob and PJ and Derek and Sue, everybody, Mary and Kerry. These are all people that we consider our fans and our friends and family. But that's what it's all about. One show I think Dad and I would say, besides the one we'll talk about later. Paul had a secret show in New York in 2007, and that was at the High Line in New York, and he was promoting Memory Almost Full, and announced it the day before, and we ran to the city, got to the venue, and we were like maybe 10th, 11th person online, and we were going to stay overnight, and all of us who were there, I remember Bob was there, stay overnight, and they said, you know what, take these tickets, that'll secure your spot online tomorrow. We don't want you kind of staying in this area in the city overnight. But we were ready. And next day we got there and walked in. 700 people was the capacity at that show. And it was just a tiny little club. And Dad and I went right in, and we were literally leaning on the stage. There was no barrier. There was just arms right on top of the stage. And very emotional show. I mean, it was the first time you hear Paul over the sound speakers and the loudspeakers, and it's so loud. But he did Blackbird, and I'll never forget, I was looking up at him because his mic was right in front of me, and you could hear him singing without the sound because we were so close. Instead of hearing the sound through the microphone, it was actually, a Beatle singing just as if he was just talking to you, and there was no speaker making that noise. It was very, very intense. For a musician, I guess it's kind of, weird to hear that from anyone else, but, it was beautiful. Beautiful. That was definitely one of the best shows we've ever been to. 700 people, intimate little show.
Wow. It's like it's in a living room somewhere. I mean, 700 people compared to what the normal venue is. It is so intimate, man.
And to complete that dream, a couple years later, my band actually played on that stage. And they all, made fun of me because I was freaking out getting to stand where I was, looking the entire time. But we played at the High Line, and it was, it just completed it. Right on.
Your band did what music does your band play?
Yeah, my band, actually, the band that I'm in, we do a bunch of things, mainly weddings and corporate events. So play everything. But we also we have a 90s band called Stiff Blues Mom, appropriate enough. And we play the city, Atlantic City, Jersey, Connecticut, all places like that. We have a show coming up at the Cutting Room in New York. I think it's on the 6th, May 6th we're playing there. And it's all 90s.
Okay, May 6th in the Cutting Room. Okay.
Yeah.
Folks, check that out in New York coming up May 6th. James Liverani, his 90s band. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you go online and get to that. Get to that if you get a chance, man, for real.
It's a great time. Great time.
And what a great venue too, man. That's awesome.
It's so fun. And Steve, the owner over there, is just the best guy in the world, and they treat us like gold, and they're the best. That's home for us, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As we continue down memory lane, what other stories do you have to share with us?
Well, obviously, we'll talk Paul. We started, so my first show was in, again, 1990 at Giant Stadium, and since then, if Paul comes around to the States, we go to at least one show. And then in 2010, he started doing these VIP packages. And in those VIP packages, the seats you get, I think it's first row and then third through sixth. If you pick any of those seats, you are entered into the sound check as well. And you get dinner and merchandise and stuff like that. But it's the sound check that it's just incredible. It's, Paul will play anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour of music that he's not playing in the show at all. He's just running through different instruments that he's going to play that night, make sure they sound good, and he's playing all things that you're not hearing at the show that night. So it's really two shows that you're witnessing that night. And you're with everybody that, again, is in those seats. So you're seeing all your friends, and it's just amazing. So in 2010, we went to our first one in Philadelphia, and everybody brings their signs. So Dad and I had our own sign, and we put It There, which is a song off Flowers in the Dirt. Paul actually wrote about his dad, so appropriate enough with Dad and I. So we put It There, number one father and son fans, and crazy enough, at the end of sound check, everyone's holding their signs up, and Paul read the sign and he said, there's a father and son fans. Why don't you guys come up here, and I'll sign your shirts. So we went up, and believe it, I couldn't believe it. It was insane. You're meeting your idol. You're meeting, it was really the first time, although, shaking hands at one point, but it was different, him looking at you and saying, you come on up. And went up there and signed our shirts. And ever since then, every show we go to, he somehow, I don't know, this is just the magic of him and his team. He always sees us and always, kind of points us and smiles or reads our signs over the microphone or puts us on the Jumbotron or just something. His team is just the greatest team in the world. He says that at the end of every show, the greatest team in the world. He's right. They're really amazing people, and they look out for the fans and they look out for the people who love Paul and who love the team, and they're just amazing. So that was really the first time he brought us up, and then ever since then, there's just been time after time of new story, and him reading a sign in 2013. My dog, who's actually sleeping in the other room right now, I have an English bulldog. We named him Macca, obviously, for Paul, and had a sign at the Barclays in Brooklyn, and held it up, and he read it, and he goes, "You really did name your English bulldog Macca?" He said, "That's a good name for an English bulldog." So things like that always tend to happen, which is, just warms you up.
Rock stories with the Brumster, your fan stories and how he appreciates fans is really what touches me, because there's so many times you see a disconnect once, someone makes it big. I mean, Paul's like big, right? Like Elvis big. But when someone even makes it and gets a little bit successful, they pander to the fans because they have to, but then you can just tell that real connection's not there. But Paul, and I remember this from all the radio days, the artists that did respect the fans, they know where their bread is buttered. They know that it's all about the fans. And that's what allows Paul to be on such a stage and go and shine like he does. And of course, his God-given gifts. I mean, without a doubt. But wow, like caring about the fans so much, carving out special time, bringing fans up on stage, seeing fans and remembering them, pointing, smiling. That's not just a fake thing. He really does remember you guys. That is so cool about him.
It's very emotional. I'll get made fun of for saying that, my friends, if they hear this. But it is. Anybody that's an idol of yours, to think that, you have a piece of their brain somewhere. I mean, not to mention a Beatle alone. And it's just, there's not a lot of words to describe it. He's very, very down to earth and just the nicest guy in the world. And again, when we talk about what happened later, it's very true, and I've heard it from other people as well.
I was watching Get Back. What is it? Five-part series. They had it on Disney Plus for a while, and this is their last go at it, basically. And they're at EMI Studios, or before. I can't remember exactly where they were. It was before they got to Apple Studios when they changed scene.
They were at Twickenham Studios.
Thank you. Gosh, Brumster. Oh my God, you're an idiot. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I got to remember this stuff. No, it's awesome that you're here to be able to be, the knowledge of that. That's Twickenham, exactly. And it was very brief, and they left. They weren't comfortable. Before they left there, George got pissed off and took off, and they're all sitting around just talking, and they had the mic, and Paul just started talking about like, hey, why don't we do a thing where we have like a reporter, and then, the announce like, this is the last time that the Beatles are ever going to play together. And then all of a sudden, as he was saying it, his mouth started to, the cry face kind of, and this tears in his eyes as he was saying it. It was breaking his heart because he was trying to be like, cool about it. And then it just like the reality of it, the Beatles are ending, and you could see that emotion in him. He's a real feeler, isn't he?
Absolutely. And actually, it's funny you bring that part up. That stays with me, that part of the show, the 3-part series. The zooming in on his face when he was tearing up was just long enough to grab everybody that was watching, and to see he's a real person. We all see the Beatles as this people up on a hill, on a pedestal. They're real. They're real people with real feelings, and just kind of, I think they've described it before as a divorce. I mean, it was tough. They all felt it, and I think maybe Paul more than any of them at the time. But that was just really great directing, I think, on whoever said, let's hold on that pose for a second.
Oh, and fast forward to the very end, he was the one early on, actually, but at the very end, it came together like he couldn't even imagine. He was the one that said, at first, let's go play like at the British Parliament so the police have to come kick us out or something, and it would just be a blast if that happened. Well, then at the very end, they're on top of Apple Studios outside, and the cops are coming in and being held at bay, and they're sitting there playing, and they all look over. The cops are standing there, trying to talk to people like, we got to shut this down. And you saw this just giant grin on Paul and everyone's face like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, poor Mal had to field all of those cops and deal with them.
It was
great.
You love though how like George comes down when they go to listen to the tapes when it's all over, and George comes down, and I heard him say, we couldn't have even done that if we even tried to make it happen that way.
Just like we just said earlier, music, things happen because they're supposed to happen, and they happen in the weirdest things, but it all works out. It all works out the way it's supposed to.
Right. I'm a classic rock lover. It's like my passion. I'm young, but I was born in the wrong era, and I love classic rock. And, it was my dream. Like, I was working my very first job in radio back in 1996, and it was for Soft Rock, 97.1 KSEQ, Night Flights. Love
you
songs.
Still got it.
Love songs and dedications. And that's serious, folks. That was the show. And it was great. I met some of my best friends. I'm at rockradio559.com now with Hopper in the morning and Brian K. Martinez. And so met some great friends that I'm still doing fun stuff with today. But my dream was it'd be so cool if I could work in classic rock radio. There would never be a day that I would have to work, and which I already felt that way. I loved radio, but to take it to that level, wow, that's a dream come true. And I applied for an opening because the only opening up in Fresno at the time was at a new rock station. So I applied there. And there was no opening at the classic rock station. I figured, hey, it's one stepping stone in that direction. I'm not even a huge fan of new rock. I like some of it, but I'm a classic rock guy. Well, nothing happens for a long time, and then finally I get a phone call just out of nowhere, and it's the operations manager, Don O'Neill, at what became Mondosphere Broadcasting. And Don says, hey, come on in. I heard your tape. I like it, but I'm sorry to let you know. I know you applied for the new rock job, but that's been filled. But I actually have an opening at Classic Rock 95.7 The Fox. What?
There you go.
What? Really? No way. And dream come true. That's what started this whole adventure of the Brumster rocking out for a lifetime, and a love of radio and everything, that goes along with it, and the people especially. And it's what you're talking about is if it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen, right? And
dreams come true.
Dreams
come true.
You feel the same way, don't you?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So what kind? Go ahead.
So, if we're going to get to, speaking of Get Back, that was a great segue into 2016. So, at that point already, kind of the dreams have come true. We've spoken a couple times with Paul and got to meet him at 2010 on stage at the Philly sound check, and it couldn't get any better, we thought. And then 2016, Paul was coming around again and actually playing right next door to where Giant Stadium was. They tore Giant Stadium down and built MetLife Stadium right in the parking lot there. So he was coming around, and we got tickets, and I said, Dad, there's one last dream. If I ever got to play with him, I never thought that, who thinks you could ever play with a Beatle? That would be it. So we came up with this idea for a sign, and it said my son would be the coolest music teacher if he got to play with his idol. And we got to sound check and hung out and had a great time and with all our friends. And sure enough, right at the end of soundcheck, he finished Lady Madonna. Always plays Lady Madonna at the end. And he said, "We'll finish with the soundcheck here, but I see there's a music teacher in the audience and his dad with him." He goes, "Is that your dad?" And I screamed. I couldn't believe it. Now, by the way, chills every time I say this. And now it's been 6 years almost. It's insane. Every time someone asks me about it, I won't shut up, and I feel terrible about it. But it's just when it's something so important to you, you can't not share. But anyway, so reading the sign, and I said, yeah. And he says, and he read the sign out loud, and he says, well, what can you play, son? Now, I'm mainly a bass player, like him, obviously. And I said, bass, and he joked. He said, well, I play bass. And then there was a big pause, which seemed like forever, but it was like 2 seconds long. And he said, come on up. And lost all feeling in hands and feet, and it felt like we were floating. I remember looking over at my dad.
Heaven.
And just, jaw dropped, and I just held my face, because I can't believe this is actually happening. And we walked on up, and everybody's cheering. The greatest thing, and I'm going to say this after too, but the best thing about Paul and fans on the run, everybody's so happy for everybody. No one's going, oh, why is it not? It was almost like we were all up there, and they were all happy, and they were all, just so happy for me and for my dad, and it was just the greatest feeling as we were walking up.
It's not competitive at all.
No, it's like one goes up, everybody goes up. We all did it. That's how I feel. Maybe it's me saying that because it happened, but I hope it seems that way. And I've, at least from my closest, fans on the run fans, that's what they say, and that's how it feels. So we went up to the side of the stage, and we're walking up, and I'll never forget this one moment. I was on the side of the stage, walking towards him, and he's standing at the microphone. And here's, my idol, many people's idols. And to the left is the entire stadium. There's about 300 people in the stadium for sound check. And him just at the mic waiting, and and walking up. It was almost like a hue around him. And it sounds weird, but it was like I was floating up there, and Dad was right there with me, which is how many people can say that? You know, you're sharing it with your own dad. And walked up to the mic, and there's a video of it, which you could actually see how amazed we both are. He played it cooler than me, I think, my dad. But he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "I'm James." And immediately he said, "I like that. It's my name, my dad's name, and my son's name. We got a lot of Jameses up here." So that was cool. You know, immediately he related it to himself, just my name, and asked my dad his name. And then I got to tell him, I said, 26 years earlier was my first show anywhere, seeing him at Giant Stadium. So it was like a back at where it first started. And he joked immediately. He said, "What, were you 6 months old?" I said, "No, I was 3. With the chicken pox, actually. I had chicken pox that day when my first show. And then we chatted for a little bit. And that's the thing with Paul. He knows what he means to everybody. And he knows that feeling that people are going to get when you're around him. So he immediately calms everything down and makes you feel like you belong and like you're supposed to be up there. So everybody always asks me when they ask about it, they say, how did you play that song? How did you even do it? And I said, well, he just makes you feel like you're supposed to be there. And not to mention, I mean, I've played, in quotes, with him in my bedroom for how many years? Me just holding my bass and putting the CDs on and playing right along. I mean, so now it was just the actual person there, So we talked. He asked me what age kids I teach, and then he asked me, do you know before that he said, if he's playing bass, can I play guitar? And luckily I do play I play enough guitar that I can get by. And they gave me Brian Ray's extra guitar. Thank you, Brian. Love you. And they gave me his backup guitar, and he said, "Do you know Get Back?" I said, "Yup." He said, "It's in A." I said, "Yup." And then he got to the mic and joked right beforehand, and he said, "This better be good, James." He says he's a music teacher. It better be good. But then right before that, we laughed, and he says, "I know you're going to be good." So, and then we were off, and we played, and it was one thing to play, and standing next to Brian and looking over at him and playing, and then looking over at Abe and Wicks and Rusty, not to mention Paul. And then all of a sudden he nods his head over at me to sing with him on the mic for the chorus. And it was just like, you couldn't get better, and then somehow he makes it better. And then after that, we're playing the chorus, playing everything. There's a big break in the middle where he always says, "Do you want to get back?" to the audience before kicking back into it. And he asked me, he goes, "Do you want to get back?" and points to the mic and asks me to do it. So there I am, all this energy. And I screamed, "Do you want to get back?" And I sound like an idiot on the video. But I looked at him, I said, "When am I ever going to do that again?" And he laughed. He said, "Let's get back, James." Went right back into it. Then he calls my dad over, who was standing on the side watching the whole time. I get emotional saying that. He came over, and we all sang together on the mic at the end. The song ends, it's ringing out, and he lifts his arms out, and he hugs both of us, and he's jumping up and down with us on stage. And it sounds like I don't have words. I have words, but it's tough to explain that feeling.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's goosebumps. It's for reals.
It's real, and I get emotional every time I talk about it because you don't feel worthy of something like that. It's your idol, your everything. This man is my whole soundtrack to my life. Every part of my life, he's there. The Beatles are there, and then obviously my parents are there, and my brother, and then my dad standing next to me, who he grew up doing the same thing, watching Ed Sullivan at home, and unfortunately his dad didn't let him go to Shea, but saw George in '74, and then Paul ever since in '76. So it was beyond special. And then finished, played, walked off stage, and on the video you could see him say, "We're finished with the sound check. There's no topping that." And for him to say that was, really special. And then we walk off stage, and again, all of our friends are there, taking pictures, and we're not supposed to take video, but in that instance, a dear friend of mine took the video, and I'll have that forever, and it's just so special that I get to relive that. Sometimes too much. People say, "Aren't you done? Aren't you sick of posting stuff?" And I go, "Yeah, but you know what? It makes me happy. It was pretty much the happiest day of my life, and I get to tell my students that dreams come true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a teacher, it's the greatest thing that I'm able to say. But then, so we get off stage, and all our friends are there, and they're cheering us on and saying, "Look at this photo I took, and look at this." And, there were a lot of tears after that. Everyone's like, "How did you not freak out on stage?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't freak out on stage, but the second I got off, I cried a lot." And, I'm not embarrassed to say that. It just kind of all came at once. It happened. And I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, right after, and I just called. I said, "It happened. It happened." And, a lot of screaming, and she was excited, and just, she knew about the sign beforehand. So, it was just all amazing. Amazing. I can't even begin to keep going on about it, but, the fans made it that much better.
And Paul McCartney said that there's no topping that. That means he was participating in the emotional moment himself.
It's funny you say that. Shelley Lazar, who the listeners, if they're fans on the run, they'll know who Shelley is. Shelley was in charge of his sound checks. Beautiful, beautiful person. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, but she was there. And I remember a friend posted something on Facebook, and immediately she responded saying, that was one for the history books, a very one of the top memorable moments of sound check. And for her to say that, I mean, she works with Paul. She's with him every day. She's in charge of all the people at sound check, making sure they have a great time. She said that. And then Brian Ray, his guitarist for now 20 plus years, wrote, great time. Paul even talked about it on the bus after the show. I mean, come on. How does that happen? How are you even a conversation?
And sharing that moment with your dad is so special. My stepdad is 60. Well, I don't remember exactly what his age is. I'm not going to say it. I respect him. I won't throw it. It isn't just women who don't want to throw their age out. Anyway, my stepdad, happy birthday, Steve. His birthday, actually, today that we're releasing this on April 21st, it's his birthday. And he was the one who got me into, classic rock. I raided his collection and stole all his tapes and CDs. And one of my favorite tapes that we would listen to all the time was Double Live Gonzos from Ted Nugent. And when I was working at the Fox in Fresno at KJFX, Fresno's Classic Rock, I got to do interviews, and I interviewed Ted Nugent, and we ended up getting front row seats, just like you were talking about, belly up to the stage. And my stepdad and I, just like we have done a million times on our own, rocked out to Stranglehold together. And that moment, I felt the same way that you felt with going with your dad up there. Even on another level, you're singing with him, man. That's a whole nother level. So, but I know
the same.
But to share that experience with your dad, how special, dude.
It's the best. It's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, we can hang out and just put on a Paul video and just kind of glance over at each other and go, "Can you believe it?" Still, to this day, we look, "Can you believe it?" And we go, "No." We were there together, and there's no topping that. Like Paul said, there's really no topping that. I said it was interviews and things like that. People wouldn't stop calling after, which was crazy. But I just remember saying, the dream of a million lifetimes. That's it. It couldn't be topped.
James Liverani, music teacher, rock fan, especially Paul McCartney, fan on the run. James Liverani, your favorite title probably is music teacher, to circle back.
Absolutely.
Those kids, especially when I was in like men's glee, which is like not good enough to be in choir, so they put you in the group with the boys as a freshman. But I still had a great time, and wow, Dan Jackson was our music teacher, And he had so much patience with me during Blue Velvet. I'm partially deaf, and so I can't. I'm tone deaf, and anyway, I'm horrible at singing. And he comes over. He's all during this part of the song. Can you just go ahead and go ahead and just move your lips, and then just come right back in for the rest of it. You're fine. But he knew there was a part of it that I would just mess other people up on. But just a music teacher he was more than that to me. I looked forward to his class. And, to be able to talk about making dreams come true and I remember when we would, the winter show or the spring show or whatever it was we were rehearsing for, and we would just be horrible and get a little better and a little better. And he just worked all of that out of us until finally we're doing the big production, and holy smokes, we hear the crowd and wow, Mr. Jackson, thank you, for putting up with us and putting all that effort into us. And, you take your love of Paul, your love of music, your love of rock and roll, and I'm sure that influences you. But also you put in a lot of effort with those kids and a lot of love. And, just like me and Mr. Jackson and my memory of him, those kids are never going to forget you either.
Oh, I appreciate that. And first of all, happy birthday to your stepdad. And those kids are my life. Along with my beautiful nieces, my students are everything to me. And I show them a video from a movie Chef every year, and they laugh about it. But there's a scene about him saying, this is my life. This is what I do. I tell them all the time, when I leave here, I'm not just going home and kind of relaxing. I have my own gigs, and I'm playing, and, it's what I do. And it's what makes me happy, and I love it. I get to sometimes touch people's lives. When I used to do weddings, I just stopped recently. But playing people's first wedding song, and it's what they imagine since they're 4 years old or 5 years old. I get to do that, and it's very touching, and I want to share that with them, because even if a portion of them can get something from it. And, I do. A bunch of my kids are into the Beatles now, and one in particular was actually at that McCartney show. Not at the sound check, but he was there, and I got to share that with him right after we got to meet up. His mom works with me too, so we got to see each other right after sound check when he got inside. And there's a picture, and you just see how happy I am. And he's again going to see him soon. And other students who are playing in jazz band and want to do their own gigs and recording, and they come and send me their own stuff. It means so much to me, that they feel comfortable enough to share that. And I love that, and they know I'll do anything for them.
James Liverani, Rock Stories with the Brumster. Really appreciate you being on our program, man. Thank you, James.
This was so fun. I really appreciate it.
For our listeners, again, to check out some of the postings you have, also where they might be able to go take a look at anything else that you'd like to share, please let our listeners know. Yeah,
besides being a musician, I'm a big photographer too, or I'm getting into it, I should say. Love doing concert photography. I have a lot of Paul, a lot of Mayer, some Stapleton, Ringo. Have an Instagram, JML_productions. That's on Instagram. I have one on Facebook as well, so you can see a bunch of photos there. Again, JML, James Michael Liverani, that's me. Also, my band, Stifler's Mom, were playing in Manhattan at the Cutting Room. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, on YouTube, you can just type my name in. I think probably the Paul video will pop up first. But if you click on my link, I have a couple other things on there. And that's really it. I love what I do, and I feel blessed that you found me and reached out, because I love talking about it.
Oh, right on. We appreciate you being here and walking us down the path, pulling back the curtain and sharing these memories with us. But folks, by the way, remember May 6th at the Cutting Room, James Liverani, his band, going to be there doing 90s music in New York. So make sure, New York, correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in Manhattan, yeah.
It's in Manhattan. Okay, perfect. James, thanks for being on the program, my man. Appreciate you very much. God bless.
You are the best. God bless to you, and thanks for everyone for listening. And hopefully we could have some more stories in the future.
Great. Hang on the line for our engineers, James. Rock Stories with the Brumster. It never fails. If you tune in here, you're going to be able to hear real rock stories from the fans' perspective. Check it out. Sundays, 11 a.m. at rockradio559.com. Also as well at the Brumster Spotify channel. That's 2 M's. Brumster Spotify channel, anchor.fm, Google Podcast. Also as well, the Brumster Facebook page. All podcasts are available there as well. BNFOB, a friend of the Brumster, come on over to the Brumster Facebook page. And don't forget, if you'd like a free Today in Rock History that's applicable to today's date, right? It's actually, timed for the day that you're looking at it. Every single day, a fresh, brand new Today in Rock History with the Brumster. Go to Today in Rock History with the Brumster. Don't just type in Today in Rock History. You'll get some other generic thing. Put in Today in Rock History with the Brumster, and you'll get a fresh, free Today in Rock History every single day. Today in Rock History with the Brumster YouTube channel. Don't forget to like our videos and subscribe. All right, God bless, rock on, and thanks for joining us here for Rock Stories with the Brumster.